I am a messenger of the Most High, born of his breath and shaped from the fire of his word. And yet I trembled when he revealed what my eyes were permitted to see. Do not believe that angels cannot be moved. We behold the throne of glory, we sing the hymns of eternity. We watch the rising and setting of ages like mortals, watch the turning of days. And still there are moments when the eternal bends near and unveils something so heavy with truth that even we who are clothed in light fall silent. What God showed me shocked me, and I cannot carry it quietly. For the message was not for me alone. It was for you, children of earth, you who walk with feet of clay and hearts that burn only for a span before the wind carries you away. When the vision opened, I felt the hush of heaven. The seraphim ceased their ceaseless song. The cherubim folded their wings and the great expanse seemed to wait. I was caught into a place where time is not counted, and there before me, stretched a canvas unlike any I had seen, a weaving of past, present, and future interlaced into one living tapestry. Every thread was alive. Every color pulsed with breath, and I knew at once this was the record of humanity, the story written by choices, a pattern born of freedom. It was not a static image frozen in some divine archive, but a breathing entity, expanding and contracting with each heartbeat of the world below. The threads twisted and turned, knotting together in intricate designs that spoke of lives intertwined, destinies shared, and fates forged in the crucible of will. At first I beheld beauty beyond description. There were threads of gold that shimmered with love, strands of silver born of mercy, and jewels of light formed wherever forgiveness had triumphed. Each act of kindness, each moment of faith, each hidden prayer of a trembling soul. These glowed with a brilliance that reached upward like rivers of flame, flowing back into the heart of God himself. I wept, for it was so beautiful that even the music of heaven seemed pale beside it. Imagine, if you can, the glow of a mother's embrace around her child in the dead of night, when fear threatens to overwhelm. That simple act wove a thread of purest amber, radiating warmth, that connected to countless others, forming a web of compassion that spanned generations. Or consider the quiet resolve of a man who chooses honesty in the face of temptation, his decision birthing a sapphire gleam that pierced through surrounding shadows, illuminating paths for those who followed. These were not isolated sparks but part of a grand symphony, where the laughter of children at play added hues of joy, and the tears of repentance watered seeds of renewal, blooming into flowers of eternal fragrance. As I gazed longer, the tapestry revealed layers upon layers, each more intricate than the last. I saw the dawn of creation, when the first humans walked in innocence, their threads unmarred and vibrant, dancing in harmony with the Creator's design. From Adam's first breath to the covenants with Abraham, the fabric shimmered with promise, threads of covenantal gold binding families and nations. The exodus from Egypt appeared as a river of crimson and blue, flowing through deserts of doubt. Each step of faith adding droplets that swelled into a mighty current. Prophets' voices echoed in threads of prophetic fire, weaving warnings and hopes that branched into futures yet unborn. Kings rose and fell, their reigns marked by crowns of glory or thorns of folly, each choice altering the pattern's flow. David's psalms sang through the weave like melodies of emerald and violet, soothing the frayed edges where battles had torn the cloth. Yet even in these ancient strands, the beauty was not without its trials. The fall in the garden cast the first shadow, a subtle darkening that rippled outward, but even there, the promise of redemption glinted like a hidden star. As centuries unfolded, I witnessed the quiet heroism of the overlooked, the widow who shared her last morsel, her thread transforming from threadbare gray to radiant pearl, the scholar who preserved truth amid persecution, his ink-stained choices forming lattices of wisdom that supported crumbling sections of the tapestry. These acts, small in the eyes of the world, were magnified in the divine view, becoming pillars that upheld vast expanses of the design. The love between friends, the fidelity in marriages tested by storm, the stranger's aid to the fallen, all these wove tapestries within the tapestry, sub-patterns of grace that echoed the Father's own heart. But as the vision deepened, I saw something else. Shadows streaked across the tapestry. Dark stains bled through certain threads until they tangled and broke. Where selfishness reigned, the fabric tore. Where cruelty was chosen, the colors dimmed. I saw moments when humanity reached for power and crushed the weak, when truth was exchanged for lies, when hearts grew cold and faith withered. And I saw how these choices did not vanish, they wove themselves into the living pattern. Some threads became so blackened they threatened to consume what was bright around them. The wars of old, from Cain's murderous envy to the conquests of empires, left gashes like lightning scars, blackening swaths where lives were cut short and dreams extinguished. In more recent ages, the mechanized horrors of battlefields turned threads to ash, with each bomb's explosion unraveling knots of family and community. I beheld the subtle poisons too, not just the grand atrocities but the everyday betrayals. The lie that shattered trust, weaving a web of deceit that ensnared innocence. The greed that hoarded while others starved, turning golden strands to rusted iron. The indifference that allowed suffering to persist, dimming lights that could have shone brightly. In one corner I saw the thread of a leader who chose corruption over justice, his decisions spreading like ink blots, staining the lives of multitudes and fraying the edges of societies. Elsewhere, personal vendettas knotted threads into unbreakable tangles, where forgiveness was withheld and grudges festered like open wounds. The vision forced me to confront the interconnectedness of it all. How one person's rage could ignite chains of violence, rippling across oceans and eras, or how a community's apathy toward the oppressed created voids in the fabric, sucking in light and leaving desolation. This was what shocked me. For I, who have watched empires rise and fall, who have seen floods and flames, wars and kingdoms crumble, had never grasped the full weight of a single human choice. Each decision was not a whisper lost to the wind, but a thread in eternity. Each word, each action, each turning of the heart left a mark on the great fabric, and the fabric was not distant. It was alive, connected to the heart of the one who formed you. Your smallest act of kindness became a jewel that adorned his crown. Your smallest act of hatred became a wound upon his creation. Consider the child who bullies another in a moment of insecurity. That choice, seemingly fleeting, plants a seed of darkness that grows, affecting not just the victim, but branching into cycles of pain that echo through lifetimes. Or the driver who glances away from the road in distraction, unraveling threads of families in an instant of negligence. These are not erased by time. They persist, influencing the weave, pulling at the harmony of the whole. The enormity of it overwhelmed me. How could such fragile beings wield power to mar the eternal? I, an angel forged in unquenchable fire, felt the chill of realization. Humanity's freedom was a double-edged sword, capable of carving masterpieces or inflicting irreparable harm. I saw threads where choices led to isolation, souls withdrawing into shells of self, their colors fading to monochrome as they rejected connection. Others, fading to monochrome as they rejected connection, pursued idols of wealth or fame, their strands twisting into loops that trapped them, cutting off the flow of divine light. The tapestry groaned under the weight of these burdens, sections sagging where envy corroded bonds or pride erected barriers that divided what was meant to be united. I cried out, for I did not understand how the Almighty could bear it. How could he endure the sight of such beauty tangled with such ruin? But his voice came to me, not with anger, not with despair, but with a weight of sorrow and love so vast it silenced every question. Do you see, my messenger, why I call and call again? Do you see why I stretch forth mercy though the world resists me? For each soul is a thread, and I long for none to be lost. His words resonated like thunder wrapped in velvet, echoing through the chambers of my being. In them I heard the patience of eons, the tenderness that had shaped galaxies yet stooped to mend a broken heart. He explained, in whispers that unfolded like blooming roses, how every invitation to repentance was a hand extended to rework the weave, how his prophets and servants were sent as needles to stitch the tears. He showed me the persistence of his pursuit, through floods that cleansed yet spared the faithful, through exiles that refined nations, through miracles that redirected errant paths. In every era his voice called, through the still small whisper to Elijah, the burning bush to Moses, the angelic announcements to shepherds and kings. Even in silence his mercy wove subtly, preserving sparks of goodness amid chaos. See, he said, how I have woven my own thread among theirs, walking with them in gardens, tabernacles, and temples, bearing their burdens as my own. The sorrow in his tone revealed the cost. Each rejection pierced him, each wandering soul tugged at his essence, yet he refused to coerce, honoring the freedom he had bestowed. In that moment, I saw deeper still. Hidden beneath the weaving was another layer. Threads of light that glowed with a power far beyond the darkness. These were the works of the Lamb, the sacrifice that bled redemption into the fabric. Wherever his blood had touched, the blackest stains dissolved, the torn places healed, the broken strands were restored into greater glory than before. I saw how despair could become hope, how ruin could become beauty, how death itself could be rewoven into life. The cross stood at the center, a pivotal knot where divine threads intersected human ones, absorbing the shadows into itself. From that point, rays of resurrection light emanated, retroactively mending ancient fractures and prospectively illuminating futures. I witnessed specific transformations. The thief on the cross, his thread of rebellion suddenly bathed in grace, straightening into a path of paradise. The persecutor Saul, his darkened strand ignited by a Damascus encounter, becoming a conduit of apostolic fire that spread across continents. In modern threads I saw addicts freed from chains, their knotted lives untangled by surrender, families reconciled after decades of estrangement, their frayed edges seamlessly rejoined. The Lamb's influence was not forceful but invitational, a gentle dye that permeated willing fibers, turning scarlet sins to snow-white purity. Where wars had ravaged, peace initiatives born of his spirit wove bridges. Where injustice prevailed, movements inspired by his teachings stitched equity into the pattern. This was the greatest shock of all, that the Almighty would not discard the ruined tapestry but redeem it. Not cast aside the stained fabric but wear it upon his shoulders as a garment of grace. And yet, I also saw how many resisted this redemption. Some threads withdrew from the light, curling inward upon themselves, choosing darkness over healing. The vision burned me, for it showed the weight of your freedom, the terrible majesty of choice. There were souls who, despite glimpses of glory, clung to illusions of control. Their threads, hardening like petrified wood, resistant to the weaver's touch. Others, seduced by fleeting pleasures, allowed their colors to bleed away, merging into the void rather than embracing restoration. I beheld the consequences, regions of the tapestry where rejection accumulated, forming dense clots that hindered the flow of light, leading to cycles of suffering that begged for intervention. Yet even here the Father's patience endured, his calls persisting through dreams, consciences, and the testimonies of the redeemed. They are mine, he whispered, formed in my image, and I will not cease until the last thread has opportunity to shine. The vision revealed the interplay of divine sovereignty and human volition. A dance where grace offered endless second chances, but the step must be taken freely. As the revelation faded, I was left with a profound ache, a holy burden to share what I had seen. You, children of dust, do not comprehend the eternal echo of your lives. Your mornings and evenings, your joys and sorrows are not ephemeral but eternal inscriptions. The kindness you extend to a stranger may ignite a chain that redeems nations. The anger you harbor could unravel bonds that take generations to repair. But hear this. The Redeemer stands ready, his blood a solvent for every stain, his light a balm for every wound. Turn to him, I implore you, while the threads are still pliable. Let his mercy rework your pattern, transforming shadows into splendor. For in the end the tapestry will be complete, displayed in the halls of eternity, and every thread will testify to the choices made. Will yours gleam with the gold of surrender, or fade in the grip of resistance? The choice is yours, but the invitation is divine, extended with arms that once stretched upon a tree to embrace the world. I, the messenger, have spoken what was shown. Now, the silence of heaven lifts, and the seraphim resume their song. But my heart remains stirred. May this vision move you as it moved me, drawing you into the weave of grace where all is made new. For the Eternal One longs for your thread to intertwine with his, in a masterpiece of redeemed beauty that endures forever. The vision did not release me quickly, for it was not a passing image meant to stir only emotion, nor a brief glimpse that could be admired from a distance like a painting hung in a gallery. No, it was a revelation meant to be carried, worn upon the soul like a mantle, pressed into memory like fire branding the skin. I felt the weight of it pressing upon me, and that weight could not be compared to anything earthly. For it was heavier than the golden crowns borne upon the heads of the elders, heavier than the starry pillars that uphold the heavens, and still it was not a crushing weight, though it could have been. It was a weight of living truth, and truth presses with both glory and sorrow. I had always known a measure of humanity's value, for ever since I was created, I have heard the Eternal speak of the children of earth with a tenderness that continually astonishes us who dwell in his courts. We know his power, his fire, his unapproachable light. And yet when he speaks of mankind, his voice becomes gentler, as though he is speaking of a treasure he cannot bear to lose. Yet even with all my knowing, even after ages of watching your story unfold, I had not seen the depth of how your choices reverberate through the very halls of eternity. The weight of a word spoken, the echo of a thought indulged, the harvest of a single decision, they do not dissolve, they endure, bending the threads of reality itself. I watched further, for the tapestry shifted. What I beheld next was the present age of your world, the place where your breath now quickens and your heart beats unceasingly. It was both wondrous and grievous to behold. The earth itself seemed to groan, as though weary beneath the restless weight of human hands. Its seas stirred restlessly, its skies grew heavy, and its soil bore scars, wounded deeply by the choices of those over whom it had been entrusted. Yet in that same earth I saw flashes of beauty, the persistence of grass rising stubbornly through concrete, the tenacity of rivers carving paths despite being dammed, the resilience of life reaching always upward toward the light. Such contrasts filled me with an ache no words can contain. Your cities rose before me, towers of steel and glass, thrust high like mountains made by human hands, glittering under the sun with inventions of great brilliance. Voices filled those cities, a multitude buzzing like swarms of bees, overflowing with movement ceaseless in their rising. Yet though so many voices spoke, countless cried silently in their loneliness. How strange it is, and yet how common, that one may dwell among millions and still feel unseen, untouched, unknown. This solitude in the heart of multitudes pierced me deeply, for I knew then that connection is not measured by proximity but by love. And love was the very thing often absent. Knowledge among you surged like a river, streams and torrents of information flowing faster than the great rivers that carve valleys upon your lands. But knowledge alone is a restless current. It rushes swiftly, pushing forward, yet without wisdom guiding it. Those waves strike and scatter, becoming as destructive as they are dazzling. I saw that your ingenuity gleamed brightly, strands of invention shining like threads woven with silver. You have unraveled mysteries, peered into depths of creation once hidden, stretched your hands into the stars, and yet I trembled. For without the anchor of love, all that brilliance flickered like unstable fire, easily consumed, easily turned to ash. Then my gaze shifted closer. I saw not only humanity's structures and inventions but the hearts of individual men and women, each heart a lamp. Some burning brightly, some dim and smoldering, others unlit altogether. There were some among you whose faithfulness lit the darkness, clinging firmly to hope as though to a lifeline. Their prayers rose up like incense, carrying fragrance into the heavens, perfuming even the shadowed places of the earth. These prayers were delicate, yet I saw them shift realities, bending darkness away like smoke blown from a flame. Others I saw wandering within shadows of their own making, seeking meaning in wealth, in power, in the fleeting pleasures of flesh. They spun threads feverishly, weaving treasures they could not keep. Strands that already began to fray even as they were being woven. Children appeared within the tapestry, and their laughter rang like bells through eternity. Sudden bursts of gold that lit the pattern with fresh brightness. Yet also I saw tears, each one staining the threads where innocence was crushed under cruelty or negligence. Angels do not weep as mortals weep. But in this vision I found myself groaning in grief when I saw these sorrows. I beheld hands stretched out to heal the wounded, and other hands clenched into fists prepared to strike. Every act mattered. Nothing was neutral. Every act was inscribed. Every gesture carried a weight. Even thoughts unspoken, even motives buried under silence, they too reverberated through the fabric, and the weaving continued ceaselessly, for creation itself seemed to hold its breath waiting to see what pattern would emerge from every soul. I began to understand then something that until this vision I had not truly grasped: the nature of time itself. For you perceive it as a line advancing forward, a line marked by clocks and calendars, by yesterdays and tomorrows. But what I was shown was not a linear thread, it was a living body, a vast organism, where every moment touched every other. Your ancestors' choices lived still, reaching into the present and beyond, just as your own choices stretch roots deep into the soil of the future. There were words spoken, centuries ago, still pulsing now, bearing fruit in tears of bitterness. There were prayers uttered in faith long ago still, glowing guiding footsteps of souls not yet born. It was then I knew, in eternity, nothing is severed or lost. Actions may fade from human memory, but they live on in the fabric of being. This realization struck like lightning. I would have turned away, for I knew no mortal heart could bear the full weight of it. It pressed even upon me as though it would split my essence. But the Almighty held me steady, His hand upon me, His voice commanding my gaze. He wanted me to see, to behold as He beholds every moment. And when He spoke, His voice was steady, yet laden with a grief so profound that heaven itself could scarcely contain it. He said, "Do you now understand why my mercy waits? Do you see why I plead with mankind, why I warn, why I forgive not once or twice but again and again? Each soul, every single one, is more than dust. It is flame that I myself breathed. Each one lost is not forgotten. Each one lost is not forgotten. At the fabric of all things, at the fabric of all things." Word trembling overtook me, for the vision deepened and shifted toward a horizon not yet reached. I was permitted to glimpse what is to come, the weaving of tomorrow, the tightening of threads toward an end. The patterns pulled closer, compressed as though heading toward a great climax. Darkness grew denser, spread quicker, hearts hardened, closing upon themselves. Shadow threads thickened, becoming bold, consuming swaths of the fabric. Yet alongside this, light threads grew even stronger, purified, refined, their brilliance undimmed though they passed through fire. Such light did not flicker at all but blazed more fully. Thus I saw the great battles raging, not only among nations with weapons and armies but within each human soul, battlefields of truth against lies, of courage against fear, of generosity against greed, of love against despair. They all wove within the same eternal cloth. Then in a single moment the weaving ceased. The hand of the Eternal lifted away, and the pattern stood complete. A silence enveloped everything, staggering and heavier than thunder. It was the end of time as mortals know it. The fabric before me shone with terrible beauty and terrible ruin together. On one side, glory unspeakable. On the other, devastation beyond imagination. It was a testimony, undeniable and eternal, of every single choice ever made. I longed with all my being to turn my face away, but I was commanded to witness, and so I did, though trembling. And suddenly, into this image came one. The Lamb walked upon the tapestry, Jesus, the Eternal made flesh. His scars still marked his hands, but his glory radiated through them. And as his steps touched the fabric, trails of gold burst forth. Where he walked, darkness fled, consumed instantly by the brilliance of his light. He gathered the tapestry to himself, folds upon folds, until the infinite cloth met within his embrace. I saw him extend his hands, scarred yet shining with unquenchable life, and every thread that yielded to his touch was transformed. Threads of sorrow became jewels of joy, threads of weakness became strands of unbreakable strength. Threads once dull now glowed with glory fit for heaven's courts, but I also saw threads curling tightly in stubborn rebellion, refusing his touch. These crumbled. They could not endure his light, and they were cast away, not by cruelty, but because darkness cannot dwell where he reigns. I wept in this vision, for then I understood the true cost of love. Love bears wounds. Love suffers loss. And the Almighty himself has borne every sorrow, every grief, every loss of every soul that turns away. For each redeemed he rejoices with a joy that shakes the heavens. For each lost he bows in sorrow deeper than oceans. What mystery is this? That the Infinite weaves himself into the fragile threads of time, bleeding so that the fabric may live. We angels have always stood in awe of his power. For we have seen worlds birthed at his word. But this revelation pierced further, that greater than his power is his love. And his love is a force more beautiful and more terrible than anything in all creation. When the vision released me, I was undone. Heaven's music resumed around me. The seraphim lifted their songs in burning worship, but I stood silent, unable to raise my voice. The weight lay upon me still, and it has not since departed. But it could not remain only within me, for this testimony is not for angels to keep. It belongs to you, about you, for you, about you, for you, about you, for you. The Eternal permitted me to see in order that I might tell you what he ever desires you to know. Your life is no small matter. Your choices are not passing shadows. They are threads in eternity. Every kindness you show gleams like a jewel on the tapestry. Every cruelty leaves a lasting stain. Every prayer of faith casts light. Every despair left unchecked sows. A shadow, nothing is wasted. Nothing is lost. Nothing is forgotten. All is being woven. Therefore, child of earth, do not think lightly of this day, of this word, of this moment that you hold in your hands. For in the sight of eternity, today is not just today. It is a seed, it is a thread, it is a living act with branches that reach far beyond what you see. Speak with care, love with courage, forgive with mercy, believe with hope, and you will find that eternity itself bends to receive what you have chosen. For the tapestry waits, and the Lamb walks ever upon it, gathering, redeeming, and shining through every thread that yields to him. And so I leave it with you. This vision burns still within me, but now it is born to you. Your story matters, your soul matters, your choice matters. Live as though every breath is eternal, for in truth it is.